The Battle of Ontario started in the NHL between the Ottawa Senators and the Toronto Maple Leafs. But since the Professional Women's Hockey League has come in, we got our own little Battle of Ontario between the Ottawa Charge and the Toronto Scepters. Welcome to PWHL Recap. I'm your host, Scott McGregor. Welcome to another Sports for Beginners edition of PWHL Recap, which starts right now. Welcome to Sports for Beginners. This is the show where I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Blue Jays, and take you on a journey through the world of sports from the fans' perspective. Here is your host, Scott McGregor. Let's have some fun. Toronto Sceptres, Ottawa Charge. Big breaking news came out after, or rather today, it came out prior to the game. We've learned that the Vancouver Golden Knights and the Toronto Sceptres will be battling in the third ever battle on Bay Street between the Toronto Sceptres and the Vancouver Golden Knights at Scotiabank Arena, home of the Toronto Maple Leafs of the NHL. We also understand that head coach of the Ottawa Charge, Carla McLeod, is battling breast cancer. Therefore, she was not able to coach the game on Tuesday night against Minnesota, which the team lost 5-1. Assistant coach Haley Arwin there to fill in. And while we're talking about coaches, let's go to the Toronto side of the ice and meet Troy Ryan. Hello, everybody, and welcome into PWHL Recap. My name is Scott McGregor. Please call me Scott. It's the fourth one. We have talked Victoire versus the Fleet. We have also talked Golden Eyes versus the Fleet. And most recently, we talked about the Scepters and the Fleet before we went Golden Eyes and Fleet. And now we're talking Battle of Ontario. So we are going back to Toronto Scepters hockey and bringing in some coverage with Ottawa. We covered a game for Boston against Montreal to kick us off. Drop the puck with Scepters and the Fleet momentarily. I should say earlier also. Both times Boston had won. And they are 3-0 in our coverage, as we also covered the Golden Eyes and the Fleet. So in Sports for Beginners is coverage of Boston Fleet hockey. Right now, the Fleet are undefeated at 3-0. But we're talking about the Charge and the Scepters. Now, the last game we talked about the Scepters, we talked about them losing to the Boston Fleet. Well, this time they pick up the dub against Carla McLeod and the Scepters. But it is important to note, and I'm going to bring up the primer here for a moment. It is important to note Carla McLeod did not see action in the first game of the December schedule for the Charge. Haley Arwin with the run of that. We also have some newcomers on the team. Now, what they are saying, so let's talk about that. We're heading on the road for the next 5 games. We want to win those games. We know that every game in this league, from the beginning all the way to the very last game, is important. We just need to take those games one at a time. It's going to be about building some consistency and understand that we are going to have to do this game in and game out. It's not just one game and be done. That's the Charge associate coach, Haley Arwin, who filled in for Carla McLeod, who is battling breast cancer, was able to be in attendance for this game. And in this game, which was Thursday night, last night, Toronto welcomes Ottawa for the season's first edition of the PWHL's only provincial rivalry. The Scepters are hosting Stick It to Cancer Night, presented by Shark Ninja. That was the presenting sponsor of the night for the game, which concedes with Charge head coach Carla McLeod's first game behind the bench. since she bravely shared the news of her breast cancer diagnosis on Sunday. Scepters alumna Erica Howe returns to Coca-Cola Coliseum for a ceremonial puck drop almost a year after the PWHL community came together to support her in her own battle with breast cancer. And also on the scene was the Canadian Cancer Society booth, which was on the concourse to learn more about the work they do to support, educate, research, and more. Coach Troy Ryan, actually, this is actually a Scepter defender who's on the What They're Saying. Scepter defender Kelly Flanagan said, "We are excited for the Battle of Ontario tonight. It's going to be a fun opportunity for us to build off of last game in front of our home crowd." It certainly was. So, want to mention this is the first game of the series between the two squads after had Ottawa beat Toronto 3-2 on December 3rd. On New Year's Eve, they beat Toronto 2-1. That was in Toronto. The first game was in Ottawa. Ottawa won that game. Ottawa also won the game on January 14th earlier this year in the last season, 4-2. Well, actually, that one was in Ottawa and Toronto won that game, 4-2. In February, Toronto also winning that game, 4-2. On February 1st, 2025. On February 16th, Ottawa, that was in Ottawa. Toronto sweated with Ottawa to get the win, but they won 3-2. And in May and on May 3rd of 2025 this year, in last season, it was Ottawa getting the win over Toronto in overtime, 2-1. Toronto finished in 5th place last year. Is currently at the time of the primer coming out, Ottawa and Toronto are currently 5th place, tied at the time of this game coming. Toronto with a win and a loss, no overtime wins or losses. Their top scorer is Savannah Harmon and Natalie Spooner. Last game, they lost 3-1 to the Boston Fleet. We recap that game from November 2025. The Ottawa Charge last played on December 2nd, and they lost 5-1 to Minnesota. They came into this game with top scorers Brianne Jenner, 3 goals, 3 games played, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. 3 points for Ottawa so far. They've lost twice in regulation, picked up 1 victory in regulation, no overtime wins or losses. All right, let's get to the game that featured in goal. Different look for these two squads on the first Battle of Ontario of the new season, 2025-2026. Familiar faces. In goal for the Ottawa Charge would be number 33. The start in goal, Reagan Kirk. In at backup for Toronto. At backup for Ottawa, backing up Gwyneth Phillips, who would get the start. The game was played in front of 7,715 fans in attendance. 7,715 fans in attendance. Wearing the number 32, the number 44. Jack Hennigan, Damien F., your referee, 32 and 44. What about your lines person? Wearing number 75. And Ali Bears. We'll go with Ali B, wearing number 67 as your lines person. All right, let's jump to the game. And we had quite a number of penalties in the first 2 periods. Let's start with the penalty takers. We'll revisit the shots on goal, power play, face-offs, all that jazz in the second segment of our show, as well as our goals. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at our penalties for this contest. In this contest at Coca-Cola Coliseum, we had a couple of penalties all going to Ottawa. The first one came at 4 minutes and 36 seconds. At this time, the Ottawa Charge had taken the early 1-0 lead, but the penalty went to number 23, Sarah Yu. 2 minutes for interference. Time of the penalty, 4 minutes, 36 seconds. At 9 minutes and 56 seconds, Peyton Hemp, wearing number 29, she would go to the box, a 2-minute minor for charging at 9 minutes and 56 seconds. Toronto has the game's first 2 power plays, they would wind up with 6, and Ottawa killing off at least 5 of those 6 penalties. 3 of the penalties went to Jocelyn Larocque. 2-minute minor for hooking in the first period at 17 minutes and 6 seconds. Ottawa rounds out the first period with 3 penalties, 1 to Jocelyn Larocque, 1 to Peyton Hemp, and 1 to Sarah W. Those penalties for charging and interference. Jocelyn Larocque penalty is hooking. In period number 2, Jocelyn is going to the box again, this time for OB tripping, out of bounds tripping, I should say. It's pronounced OB trip or OB and then tripping. So I will say out of bounds tripping. 2-minute minor to Jocelyn Larocque. She wears number 3 for Ottawa. And that came 34 seconds in to the second period of play. Again, at this point in time, still 1-0 Charge. We'll get to the goals momentarily. It was on the second penalty of the second period that Jocelyn Larocque would take, which is a 2-minute minor for delay of game, that the first goal had already been scored, as they do score on the Jocelyn Larocque OB tripping penalty, but at the time of the Larocque penalty, still 1-0 Charge. The Scepters had taken the game into a tie on the power play after the Jocelyn Larocque penalty for OB tripping. She takes a penalty at 8 minutes and 30 seconds for delay of game. And the last penalty called here on Ottawa would go to Emily Clark, wearing number 26. 2-minute minor for holding at 16 minutes and 25 seconds. At this time, the Scepters have taken a 2-1 lead. Only penalty in the period and for the game to Toronto was the same penalty given to Jocelyn Larocque 34 seconds into the period. This one comes at 18 minutes and 7 seconds, and it goes to Toronto's number 18, S.E. Compierre. At this point, Toronto with the lead at 2-1. They would eventually win this game 3-1, but how did they do so? Find out in just a matter of moments. When we come back on PWHL Recap, Battle of Ontario, who scored for Ottawa? Who scored for Toronto? Who wound up with an assist? Did someone have more than one assist in the game? I can tell you for certain that is not the case. I can also tell you for certain one player had a goal and an assist in the game. Find out who it is when we continue. Also still to come on PWHL Recap, setting the stage for the next games for Ottawa and for when they will next be in action. We'll do the play of the game, women's hockey player of the game, and last but certainly not least, set the scene for the upcoming week in PWHL hockey. Also, you'll find out who's next when we drop the puck again on PWHL Recap. Spoiler alert, Toronto is one of the teams in the mix. We're back to PWHL Recap, Battle of Ontario. PWHL Recap, Battle of Ontario continues in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
Hi, Scott. It's Ali here. I just wanted to mention that I'm really enjoying the show and I'm really enjoying what you're putting together. And I wanted to just say I'm enjoying being a part of it as well. So please keep up the phenomenal work and make sure you guys keep this podcast going because it really suits you well.
Sienna T Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on Sienna T Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on Sienna T Radio.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to PWHL Recap, Battle of Ontario. We have talked about the officiating crew. We went between the pipes. We went through our penalty summary. We went through the head coaches. Of course, we had a little bit of an interesting portion to get to there, reporting that Carla McLeod, who was present for this game behind the bench, she is battling with breast cancer. She missed Tuesday night's clash against the Minnesota Frost, who, speaking of, will take on the Boston Fleet this Sunday. And with that said, Ottawa, glad to have her back for this game, but unfortunately they lose this one. But that is besides the point. Even though they lose this game to Toronto 3-1 to open up the 2025-2026 season, you gotta be wondering, the health of players, coaches, and everybody in between is most important. So prayers up to you, wishing you a speedy recovery, and hopefully you're able to recover and beat breast cancer. After this show hits the air, or before it hits the air, we'll have a link, if we're able to put it into our description, we'll have a link to learn more about breast cancer as we follow Carla through her journey. Again, she did miss the game against the Minnesota Frost, but she was present for the game against the Scepters. And speaking of that, let's get right back to it. Let's go to goals. Apologies if I pronounce anybody's name wrong, but getting things started in the first period of play, the Ottawa Charge goal belongs to Fanzua Kadyrov. There we go. I think I got it right that time. Well, at least the first name. Fanzua K. First goal of the season for her. Then Fenyuza K. There we go. Fenyuza K. I'll go with Fenyuza K. Sorry if I'm pronouncing the name wrong. I apologize. She wore the number 71. Hey, that's Evgeny Malkin's number. Interesting. And actually, for pronunciation issues, I'll just go with FK. Apologies for not getting things politically correct there. But anyway, she gets her first goal of the season. And not politically, I mean pronunciation-wise correct. Anyways, moving on. We got a goal from FK, her first of the season. Assists belong to Samantha Isabel, her first assist of the season. Anna Shokinhina with her first assist of the season as well. Rookies, I believe, coming in to score first goal of the career, first goal of the season, and first assists of their career and of the season. Time of the goal for the Charge, 1 minute 45 seconds. Charge leading 1-0 at the end of a period of play in which they were outshot 18-4 after the first period of play. We mentioned the penalty to Jocelyn Larocque at the 34-second mark of the period, 34 seconds into the second period. Well, it's on that penalty that the Scepters capitalize on the power play. Her first goal of the season, Daryl Watts, first goal of the season. Ali Monroe with her first assist of the season. And the Scepters tie it on the power play at a goal apiece. But they're not done there. At the 12-minute, 59-second mark, Natalie Spooner puts her first goal of the year on the board. Daryl Watts, her first assist of the season. Emma Maltese already has 1 assist on the season so far. She'll pick up assist number 2 on the season as the Scepters go ahead 2-1 on Natalie Spooner's goal. Spooner puts Toronto ahead their first lead of the evening. So Ottawa was leading by a goal. They gave that up. And now Toronto is leading by a goal after 40 minutes of play. At which time, Toronto was still out shooting Ottawa. They end the second period with 9 notes. It's actually 9 for the Scepters, 7 for the Charge. Charge down, not 3-1, they were down 2-1 at the end of 40 minutes of play. They were down in the shots on goal 27-11 after the big first period of play. Shots on goal for the Charge and Scepters. In the third period of play, before we get to the goal, scored by Captain Blair Turnbull, Toronto finishes the game with 10 shots on goal in the third. Ottawa finishing with 6. They were ultimately heavily outshot, 37-17 at the end of this hockey game, and they would ultimately end up losing 3-1. The goal, an empty net goal, coming late in the third period by Blair Turnbull. Her second goal of the season. Claire Dalton, her first assist of the season, primary assist, gives Toronto a 3-1. 19 minutes and 20 seconds was the time of the goal, and no penalties were called in the third period of play. All right, scoring done. We kind of reiterated a little bit of the penalties there. Toronto, the only team to score on the power play once of 6 times. So Ottawa will go 5 for 6 on the PK. Toronto, perfect 1 for 1 on the PK in this one. Ottawa picking up 0 for 1 on the power play. They spent 12 minutes in the box. 6 players went into the box. Jocelyn Larocque 3 times. Peyton Hem 1 time. Emily Clark also once. And Sarah W. once going to the box. Face-offs, 27 wins for Toronto in this one. 26 wins for Ottawa. Heavily evenly matched between the two squads. We have Toronto with 50.9%, just pretty much 51% of the faceoffs won by Toronto at 27 out of 53. Ottawa with 26 wins out of 53 faceoffs, 49.1%, just about 49% of the faceoffs won by the Charge in this one. Our line score for the game: Ottawa a goal in the first period, Toronto 2 goals in the second period, 1 goal in the third. Ottawa no goals in the second period and the third. Toronto without a goal in the first period of play. All right, stats, line score, scoring, penalties, officiating crew, coaches, goaltenders out of the way. Let's take some time here on this second segment of our show to take a look at the rest of the week so far, including games we talked about on PWHL Recap this week so far. So as we mentioned, the Ottawa Charge have lost both of their games this week so far. They lost 3-1 to the Toronto Sceptres last night on December 4th. We're recording this on Friday, December 5th, 2025. The Seattle Torrent picked up their first franchise win at home with a 2-1 victory over the New York Sirens on Wednesday, December 3rd. In the nightcap of the December 3rd doubleheader on Wednesday. In the opener of that nightcap, Boston beat Vancouver 2-0. We had it right here for you on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, from Agganis Arena in Boston. So apologies if I'm pronouncing the name wrong. TD Place in Ottawa, the site of Ottawa's 5-1 loss to Minnesota. And there you have it. Those are our final scores so far. New York will play Vancouver next. Toronto will be playing Montreal, and Boston will be playing Minnesota to round out the week. When we continue on PWHL Recap, it's time for the play of the game. It's time to look at the 3 stars of the game, and it's time to announce the women's hockey player of the game. So keep your eyes peeled for that as the Battle of Ontario PWHL Recap rolls on. Perhaps we'll get you a look at tonight's action on the ice over in the men's league. We'll see. We're back in a moment on PWHL Recap. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
I wonder if I could make it. It's almost getting to 8 o'clock p.m., and I am still a few more steps away from home to get to my computer to listen to Sienna T Radio's Cosmopolitan Culture Club. The best of the best music from around the world. Can't wait. I think I made it. Sienna T Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
Hey everyone, it's Scott McGregor here. Join me weekly right here on Sports for Beginners for weekly episodes, your weekly dive in around sports news surrounding the Toronto Blue Jays, Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Raptors, and more. We'll have guests on a week-to-week basis, and so much more. Lots of great conversations coming. Be sure to subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode. And with that, make sure to like our Facebook page, Sports for Beginners Podcast 87. Just type that into your browser, and you should be sure to find our Facebook page. We'll also provide bonus content. It's going to be a dull moment you'll never want to miss. Check out Sports for Beginners with me weekly for daily news around the sports league, surrounding my favorite sports teams and yours, and so much more. Until then, we'll see you at action time.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to PWHL Recap. My name is Scott McGregor, your host of the program. Please call me Scott. It is time now to take a look at our 3 stars of the game, Toronto and Ottawa, Battle of Ontario. 3 stars of the game brought to you by, in this case, when we cover the Penguins, and of course, their respective opponent, which will be the Dallas Stars on Sunday. The Dallas Stars on Sunday. They're not playing this weekend on Saturday, and they also don't play tonight, but they did play last night. They're brought to you by their respective sponsors for the radio and TV network. For, in this case, last night's game, the Penguins were playing the Tampa Bay Lightning. We'll talk about that on Penguins postgame. But the 3 stars and play of the game brought to you by its respective sponsors. We don't have a sponsor for either of these segments, but we could be looking to get some of those. Anywho, let's get right to it, shall we? Yeah, here we go. Your 3rd star went to Ottawa Charge goaltender Gwyneth Phillips. 36 shots faced, 34 saves, a time of 58 minutes and 56 seconds on the ice total. She got your 3rd star and is the number 33, as you can see. Your second star went to Toronto Sceptres forward, Natalie Spooner. 1 goal, 1 assist. Natalie Spooner is the number 24 on Toronto Sceptres. And the first star went to Daryl Watts, number 9 of the Toronto Sceptres, and a forward as well. 1 goal, 1 assist, which would also give her a few points. So we got Daryl Watts, Natalie Spooner, and Gwyneth Phillips, your 3 stars of the game. All right, time now for the play of the game, and here we go. Despite taking as many penalties as you did, I gotta go to the costly one on Jocelyn Larocque. When you had the lead, Daryl Watts did not make a mistake, and she was able to make sure Toronto was able to capitalize on that power play opportunity, and they did so. So penalties can cost you in games, especially when they all matter, in which case, in this league, every game matters from beginning to the end, I should say. Daryl Watts' power play goal, good enough for my play of the game. Now, unfortunately, not able to show any audio, but that's okay. We don't need to show audio because we'll just pick it. If we had someone with us as a guest, we would allow them the floor to give us the play of the game, but we don't have that, so it's okay. All right, ladies and gents. I want to also take this opportunity to tell you that coming up on Sports for Beginners season coverage, we are down to the final 2 episodes. We will have just this coming episode number 31 of season 4, where we will recap the game between the Penguins and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then our Christmas program will be coming out, and we'll also take some time to talk PWHL, FIFA World Cup, and so much more, but it will definitely be holiday themed. And now, as we bring that up here, before we get to the women's hockey player of the game, as I bring off the shared screen, it is your time to shine. If you would like us to cover different stuff in season 5 of Sports for Beginners, let us know now by sending an email to sportsforbeginnerspodcast 8231@gmail.com. Once again, send an email to sportsforbeginnerspodcast 8231@gmail.com, or you can get into it on our Discord server. In terms of accessibility issues, if you have any issues with that, check it out on WhatsApp. We have a WhatsApp group, and also all you would need to say is, this is what I would like you to cover on your next season of coverage. And I can already tell you, for season 5, we're getting options. Even when I'm not talking on the air, we're getting options for season 5. One thing I will reiterate on that season 4 finale, just like on that season 4 Christmas finale, which comes your way following our episode recap of Penguins and Lightning, all other Penguins post-game shows from on to Christmas will be bonus coverage, both on the ice and behind the benches, its new home, and right here on Sports for Beginners, the podcast. And they will continue, as will our Bills post-game coverage continue, and our PWHL coverage will continue as bonus content over our Christmas hiatus for season content on Sports for Beginners. So we're just going to keep the podcast rolling. And like I said before, I'm getting a lot of ideas for season 5 in terms of maybe covering some San Francisco 49ers action. We're definitely going to continue covering the Bills and the Miami Dolphins. We will cover that as well. We're definitely covering the Blue Jays, so that is not leaving anytime soon. New next season, we will be talking Toronto Tempo in the WNBA. Stay tuned for when we're going to be doing that. We also will try to cover as much Toronto Raptors basketball as we can, even with the ongoing season right now into the playoffs and the start of the next season. And with that said, those are just tidbits for season 5. With that said, we roll on with our women's hockey player of the game. We're not going to share the screen here, but I will provide that for you now. After a 30-second timeout, we are going to reveal to you, coming up in the PWHL besides the games on Saturday and Sunday, which we will reiterate. And it'll be time to find out who's next on Sports for Beginners coverage of PWHL Recap. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Toronto is one of the teams in the mix. Again, we're doing select games this hockey season for women's hockey. With that said, let's get right down to it. The first recipient of the Women's Hockey Player of the Game, you know what, let's go ahead and share screen. The first recipient is going to go to the puck stopper, and that's going to go on both sides of the ice. First to Elaine Truly, who spent 59 minutes and 56 seconds on the ice, made 16 saves off of 17 shots, only gave up 1 goal. Gwyneth Phillips is going to get it on the Ottawa Charge side, gave up 2 goals, played 58 minutes and 56 seconds, made 34 saves on 36 shots, not too shabby. So the Women's Hockey Player of the Game is actually going to belong to the goalkeepers, but honorable mentions going out to Natalie Spooner, Maggie Connors, and Emma Gentry for Toronto Scepters, Rebecca Leslie, Roy Gilday, and Jocelyn Laroque going to get honorable mentions as well on the Ottawa Charge, as well as Peyton Hemp. I really like what I saw from Peyton Hemp, and just to reiterate, I actually did not see Peyton Hemp, or I didn't see any of this game, but you know what? That's okay. It was kind of paying off because I was following the game on the website, not in live stream, but on the game center. I was following the game to make sure things were all good and all set up before we came on. And with that said, we'll wrap it all up here on this segment with the start time. Puck drop was 10 minutes after 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific, as well as 5 p.m. Mountain, midnight in the UK, and in France and Sweden, 1 in the morning. The game ended 33 minutes after 9 p.m. Eastern. 33 minutes after those times is when the game ended. To reiterate our 3 stars to send us to break, Gwyneth Phillips, Natalie Spooner, and Daryl Watt, in the form of Daryl Watts, Natalie Spooner, and then Gwyneth Phillips, who came in at star number 3. Star number 2, Natalie Spooner. Star number 1, Daryl Watts. When we return, we wrap this up. Who's next on PWHL Recap? What's coming up on Sports for Beginners, the podcast? And what's still to come as we inch closer to the end of Season 4? And our final episode, which will be episode number 32 of Season 4, with lots of content to discuss. Find out that after this word from our friends over at Sienna T Radio, and a quick little word detailing an upcoming show that will bring us right back when we return to PWHL Recap. We'll hear a word from our friends over at Sienna T Radio. Plus, taking us right back in off of our back to the studio, we have a little teaser for Pittsburgh Penguins hockey action next season. Coming soon, a coming soon trailer before we wrap it all up here in a nice little bow. You won't want to miss it. That comes your way next. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
Sienna T Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on Sienna T Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on Sienna T Radio.
Hey everyone, it's Scott McGregor here. Join me weekly right here on Sports for Beginners for weekly episodes, your weekly dive in around sports news surrounding the Toronto Blue Jays, Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Raptors, and more. We'll have guests on a week-to-week basis and so much more. Lots of great conversations coming. Be sure to subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode. And with that, make sure to like our Facebook page, Sports for Beginners Podcast 87. Just type that into your browser, and you should be sure to find our Facebook page. We'll also provide bonus content. It's going to be a dull moment you'll never want to miss. Check out Sports for Beginners with me weekly for daily news around the sports league, surrounding my favorite sports teams and yours, and so much more. Until then, we'll see you at action time.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
Hey, what's up, Penguins fans? Join me, Scott McGregor, host of Sports for Beginners, Penguins Postgame, and Weekly in Sports, as well as other content on Sports for Beginners. Join me weekly next season for Penguins Weekly Recap. We'll break down the stars of the week, the victories, some of the losses, hear from players and coaches after practice, and get you set up for the next upcoming week of Penguins hockey action. Don't miss Penguins Weekly Recap, coming soon to Sports for Beginners, the podcast, a brand new show dedicated to Penguins hockey, only on Sports for Beginners. Let's go, Pens! Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. PWHL Recap. I am your host, Scott McGregor. Be sure to catch me on Penguins Weekly Recap during the start of the 2026-2027 regular season, where it will be 84 games, as I'm told. But some of that raises questions. So what I will say, Penguins postgame will be a week-to-week edition on Sports for Beginners and on the ice and behind the benches, especially for season content on Sports for Beginners. And also a weekly occurrence will be Penguins Weekly Recap during the 2026-2027 84 game season. And with that said, let's continue talking women's hockey here as we prepare to set you up for our last recap and recording of today. At the time we're recording this, it is pretty much exactly 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific Time. I want to let you guys know that as of right now, it is actually time to wrap up PWHL Recap. So, with everything else out of the way, let's get right to looking ahead. And I want to take this opportunity before we look ahead to tell you about who's next in coverage on PWHL Recap. Well, we're going to be covering the Halifax game between the Montreal Victoire and the Toronto Scepters on Wednesday at 6:30 Eastern, 5:30 Central, 3:30 Pacific, 4:30 Mountain, between the Toronto Scepters and the Montreal Victoire. It's time for a little PWHL takeover. We'll be recapping the game from the Scotiabank Centre in Halifax, which you can watch for Canada viewers in en français on RDS. You can also hear the game in Canada in English on TSN. Viewers in the States can hear it on their respective networks that will be carrying the game. And of course, they can hear it wherever not prohibited on the PWHL website, as well as on YouTube. That is our next game we're going to be covering. But speaking of the next game on the RDS schedule, that is between Toronto and Montreal from Place Bell in Laval. Viewers who want the game in English can catch it on TSN. If you want it en français, catch it on RDS. That is where a startup of a doubleheader for December 7th begins, with game number 2 of that doubleheader from Agganis Arena in Boston, Massachusetts, between the Boston Fleet and the Minnesota Frost. Viewers in Canada can watch the game on Sportsnet. Viewers watching from America can watch on either FanDuel Sports Network or NESN, the New England Sports Network. Also on Saturday, playing out tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, I will actually be watching this game. It's the Vancouver Golden Eyes versus the New York Sirens. That should be a good one from Pacific Coliseum in Vancouver. You can catch the game if you are tuning in the States. Watch the game streaming live on MSGSN2. Viewers in Canada, you can get the game on CBC and CBC Gem. Vancouver and New York next up on the CBC broadcast. And with that said, moving things along to Tuesday, December 16th, Ottawa and Vancouver will duke it out from the Pacific Coliseum on Prime. For viewers in Canada, it's on Tuesday. It's only on Prime. Viewers in the United States can catch this game wherever it is available on their stations, and so on and so forth. All right, quickly here, triple header on December 17th, as we got to wrap it up here. Montreal and Toronto at the Halifax Scotiabank Centre in Halifax. We will have that for you here on Sports for Beginners on the next edition of PWHL Recap. The other game in the nightcap of that one is on from the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. The New York Sirens hosting the Boston Fleet. And then the nightcap, all three of these games, all on TSN. It's a triple header. You will see the Seattle Torrent taking on the Ottawa Charge from Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle. Puck drops at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific, 9 p.m. Central. And Boston will also be in action against Minnesota at the Grand Casino Arena in St. Paul on Friday, December 19th. We will get you set up for that game on our finale episode, which comes your way on game night between Minnesota and Boston from St. Paul. Puck drops at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain. All right, that will do it actually now for our coverage of PWHL hockey. Thank you so much for being with us. The next game for the Toronto Scepters will be this Sunday against Montreal. Watch it on TSN. Coverage starts at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific time. As for Ottawa, they're back in action against Vancouver at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific, 9 p.m. Central. Montreal and Toronto going head-to-head at noon on Sunday. From Place Bell in Laval, that's it for us. But if you love hockey, another season episode of Sports for Beginners has another hockey recap right around the corner for you. Pens and the Bolts coming up on Sports for Beginners. Be sure to check that out when you get a chance if you like hockey. Until we talk PWHL takeover between the Montreal Victoire and the Toronto Scepters, I'm Scott McGregor saying thank you so much for joining us. And always remember, ice time earned. That's it for us. We'll talk to you after the game in Halifax between the Toronto Scepters and the Montreal Victoire. See you after the game. at the Scotiabank Centre in Halifax, right here on PWHL Recap. Thank you so much for listening to Sports for Beginners. If you would like to learn more about the show, you can visit the podcast Facebook page or visit the official website. You can also send us an email at sportsforbeginnerspodcast8231@gmail.com. As we always remind you, it is not goodbye, it is until next time.